Welcome to EV-olution, my channel about electric cars from a different perspective. My name is Andre Lawrence, and this is the Kia EV9 that everybody and their grandmother's already reviewed. Why would you watch this video? This isn't a tech and spec video. This is a what's it like to live with, what are the differences with previous versions of Kia, like the EV6 that I've owned for 2 years. If you want to find out more, stick around, I'll show you in 10 seconds. As for why you should watch this video and how it differs from everybody else, I'm not doing a tech and spec review. This isn't about the 100 kilowatt hour in this GT line version of the Land EV9, or its 21-inch wheels, or the HDA2, how it drives by itself, although I will talk about some of those things because there's some interesting differences between the EV9 and the Kia EV6 that I own, which is the first generation of the eGMP platform. This refreshed version of the eGMP has some stuff that's actually pretty amazing, and I wish my car had it. Kind of makes me want to change, but I won't, not just yet. So we'll talk about that shortly, but this is more of a real life use situation. I've got my mother and my wife that jumped in the truck with me. We loaded up with a bunch of stuff, like you can see back here. I've got wheelchair, camera gear, a whole bunch of stuff. This isn't to make it pretty and show you the best possible situation. This is a what's it like to pack it up, jump in the truck with your family, and just head off on a road trip for 300-400 kilometers. It's actually surprisingly efficient. So the biggest motivation for me wanting to get the EV9 for this road trip was the fact that my mother, who's 93, she wants to visit the city of Quebec, but she can't really walk that far. So there's a wheelchair that was available for her to borrow, and we threw it into the back of the truck because in my EV6, 3 people, plus the wheelchair, plus the luggage, plus camera gear, wouldn't have been a very comfortable fit. The EV9 makes it quite simple, and I'll put some B-roll up on the screen here for you to see. There is a ton of room when this third row is down. That brings up a very cool feature, is that this third row seat is actually motorized, and in the GT line it's a third and second row. I can actually control both of them from over here with some buttons. Now that makes things really convenient, but that also brings up a little thing that happened to me when I was loading it up that I thought was maybe not so good. Now there are 4 buttons in the back to fold those seats down, and I found something that I'm unable to explain so far, and it has to do with the second row driver's side, and you'll see that in a second. But essentially you've got these 4 buttons. The third row buttons, it's a single press on either one. The headrests flap down and the seats go down. Now you've got a second set of buttons for the second row seats, and if I take this one here, the seat will back up and it will fold downwards completely flat. Now the problem is, it doesn't matter how many times I press this button, it will not go down. If I use the touchscreen and I select that seat, it says to check the driver's seat position. Now I've done this multiple times. I've put the driver's seat all the way forward, all the way up, all the way down. I've put the headrest up and down. I just, for the life of me, can't figure it out. Now it may be that this press car has an issue because there are a couple little things, but that's to be expected with a press car that's been through, I'm guessing, hell. But I thought that was kind of odd. As convenient as these buttons are in the back for the third and second row seats, one thing that I noticed when I was packing this, and I've got my mother's wheelchair back here and I had a whole bunch of stuff in there as well, but when I took my mother's bag and I put it in this position and then I kind of scooched it up into the corner, the bag is a little bit higher than this one, but what happened is it actually pressed that third row button and it started to raise the wheelchair and all of the stuff that was on top of it, and if I hadn't caught it in time, it would have probably dumped a bunch of stuff out the back of the truck. Not the most convenient, and you would think that there would be some sort of lockout mechanism for that, so when you're packing this up that it wouldn't cause that issue. Just a little nitpick, but something that I thought was interesting because it happened to me without really even trying. It's our first DC fast charging stop since we left Quebec City, and the only 350 kilowatt charger that was available was the Petro-Canada one. Now, Petro-Canada being the worst charging network in North America, it's always defective, and of course, it was defective. The only other charger that was beside there was being used by an Ioniq 5. So we turned around and we came to the Circuit Electric charging station that's right near it. And the problem here is that it's 50 kilowatts. Now this being a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack means that on a 50 kilowatt charger going from 23, 24% state of charge to 80%,
would take an hour and 10 minutes. So having a long-range battery is fantastic, but when you charge this thing up, you want to use at least a 180 kilowatt charger, and ideally 350 kilowatt charger, because in 350 kilowatts you can stop for 15-20 minutes and be on your way to the next one. So with that being said, I'm drawing 50 kilowatts out of the 50 kilowatt charger, and we're going to grab maybe 50-60 kilometers just so we can get to a faster charger a little further down the road.
One of the features that I thought was a little bit ridiculous when I saw it in other reviews and when I actually saw it in person was this center drawer, which also has a tray. Now, when you pull this out, it gives you access to a tray that's on top. And then when you slide this tray forward, you get a large storage bin for the rear passengers. And if you pull the tray out and then out all the way, it locks into place and acts as a little table for the rear passengers. Like I mentioned, I thought that was a little silly because it takes away from the armrest in the front, which has essentially no storage underneath it for the driver and passenger. But I put my mother in this back seat and realized, wow, that's actually really useful if you have a family and you're putting people in here. Now, what I did is I took this Kleenex box, stuck it there. She had some napkins, she had her snacks and whatever, and everything was essentially right at her fingertips without having to reach down or to turn or ask us to give her anything. So if you've got people sitting back here and you're gonna go on a road trip, that's actually a pretty neat feature. With this being the GT line, that means that it's got all the bells and whistles. That means that the rear seats are not just heated, they're also ventilated, and they're fully electric. So these two captain chairs on each side have these electric buttons. The seat can be raised, tilted, leaned back, and all of that other good stuff. But it's also got the leg rest that you can lift out and give yourself a little bit of a, I guess you call it a reclining armchair. And it's also got a little armrest in the middle. Took me a second to figure it out, but it goes all the way down without ratcheting or locking into place. But once it's all the way down, you lift it up and it'll lock into the position that you stop. If you want to reset it, put it all the way back up, bring it all the way back down, and readjust. Another interesting feature of this trim and the premium trim is the rear climate controls that are up on the ceiling. Now in my EV6, I've got the vents in the B-pillars, but in the EV9, they've put the vents up in the roof. Something that I noticed with the vents being up in the roof though, is when you initially turn on the air conditioning and it's hot outside, or even when it's not that hot, but the sun has been beating on the roof for a while, that means that all of the plastic tubing that's up there essentially gets pretty hot. And that means that the air that blows out of there is very hot until the cool air cools down the plastic and then starts to shoot out some cold air. This GT Line EV9 has a 6-passenger seating configuration. The middle is captain chairs, and then you've got the 2 seats that are in the back that are kind of a tight fit. Now, how do you get in and out of the vehicle from the back seat? Well, fortunately, Kia thought of this, and there's a couple buttons, one down there for somebody on this side, and then there's one right up here, and if you just press this button, the seat lifts, moves forward, and tilts the entire seat. Once it's completely moved forward, you can squeeze into the back. Not too bad for somebody my size, but somebody who's a little bit bigger might find this a tight fit. So once you manage to slide into the back seat of the EV9, there's a decent amount of width, but the issue comes with the amount of legroom. Headroom is fine, but this seat in front of me is pushed forward about halfway, and my knees, as you can tell right here, are pretty much butt up against the back of the seat. So for kids, not a problem. For adults, not for long trips. Even though you've got dual cup holders and power reclining seats and a USB port on each side, not the best for long road trips for adults. Even though the rear seat room is a bit tight for some adults to be back here, one of the cool things is that you've got this giant panoramic roof. Now this panoramic roof is quite large. It can be seen from both the middle and the rear rows, and is one of the features that I really like in a lot of cars. Now something that I don't like in a lot of cars with panoramic roofs is that when it's hot, like on a day today where it's gonna be 30 degrees, the sun can come beating down on you and they don't have anything to close it. Well, the nice thing is Kia thought of that, and this actually closes. Something I kept doing throughout the trip with my wife and my mother was asking them what they felt the comfort was like and if they liked it. Now, I had my own opinion and I know what I think, and I'll get to that in a second, but how is it for a passenger? And my wife likes my EV6, she thinks that it's very comfortable, but she said that this is definitely a step up in terms of comfort. Now, seating position has something to do with this. You're a little bit higher up, and these seats are kind of ridiculous. Now, the front driver and passenger seats are motorized in multiple ways. The driver's seat is kind of crazy. We'll get to that in a second. But all of these seats, that includes this one and the two in the back and the driver's seat, have a button that give you a recliner with a leg rest. Yes, you heard that right. The driver has a leg rest, and it works with a touch of a couple buttons. That's this right here. And you can move the seat forward and backward. You can move the seat down quite low. That's how I got my mother into the front seat. And you can move this thing right up. And it goes quite high, kind of uncomfortably high. And then you've got the tilt adjustment to lean it backwards. I've never done this, so it's kind of reclining quite a bit. And then you've got the back, which adjusts obviously forward and backwards, but you can essentially lay down in the passenger seat of this car. Holy crap, that's really far. Now, one of the things that my wife did mention was that the bolsters on these seats are actually quite comfortable. And in the driver's seat, there's a little trick that I'll show you very shortly. Now, to reset this, there's no one-touch button to bring this back that I can find. So basically, it's a manual, put it all back the way it was, which is a shame because it would have been nice if there was a button. Maybe there is and I'm just uneducated. If it is, then let me know in the comment section below and teach me a lesson. Once you've readjusted the seat to where it's supposed to be, you've got this lumbar support. Now, lumbar is a pneumatic system that's in the back of the seat that'll push forward and deflate to go back to normal. What else do I find interesting about the driver's seat? Well, there's a couple things. One is these bolsters. Now, the bolsters are inflatable, and you've got this little button right here. If I push forward or backwards, they'll inflate or deflate to snug up to your body. Now, the party trick is if you're driving and you press the drive mode button to get into sport mode, the butt part will kind of deflate and sink in a little bit, and then these things will snug up to your body. I thought that was pretty cool, but that was kind of surprising. The first time I put it into sport mode and the car hugged me. It was a little bit weird, but pretty interesting. So when you're driving a little bit more sporty, the seat will keep you in your position. Now, the other thing that I find very interesting is the massage mode. Now, there are 3 different kinds of massages. There's the lumbar, the pelvic, and the whole body massage. I thought it was really interesting because it's not what I expected. Now, being a pneumatic system where there are air bladders in all the portions that are adjustable, this thing will pump certain bladders up and deflate them in a different pattern, basically as if somebody is rolling their arm into you. At first, I thought it would have been a little bit of a gimmick, but on a long trip, after a couple of hours of driving, I stuck the massage thing on, and having your butt shifted position for you, kind of interesting, and actually took some of the stress off and made the trip a little bit more enjoyable until I got to the rest stop. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that the drawer and tray for the rear passengers in the center console is quite interesting for them, but it takes away from the driver and passenger center console or armrest storage area. Now, that's true, but it's not the end of the world, and I'll explain that in a second. Essentially, when you pop this open, you've got this little storage area here, and if I take my camera lens cap and I put it standing up, this is a relatively short enclosure. Now, when I thought of my EV6 has a deep armrest and storage area, and ended up buying a tray that's about that deep to put on the top so that I don't have to go digging around into the bottom of it. So in the end, not having a deep storage in the armrest is not a big deal because you've also got the storage area that's underneath the center console, which is where you put most of your stuff when you're driving around anyways, like a Kleenex box or bottles of whatever water that you buy when you're on a trip. So center console not having a deep storage for the front passengers and driver, not a big deal. Also got a couple cup holders, and it's also got this really nice cover that you can close so you can put stuff in that front area as well. In my EV6, I've got my shifter knob and my power button right here on the center console, making things very accessible and easy. Now, for some unknown reason, Kia engineers decided to put everything on this stock. Now, I'm not a fan of the shifter stock that other cars have, like the Ioniq 6 and the Ioniq 5. It's okay, but they went and put the power button right here. Now, when I first got into the vehicle, I sat down and I went, where's the power button? It's not here, it's not here, not here. It's like it's nowhere. You can't see it. And I was like, oh, there it is. I had to twist the steering wheel, and lo and behold, it's all the way right here, which makes absolutely no sense because it's between the shifter paddle, the stalk, and the steering wheel, and I'm small, so I can contort and get to it, but why? And this is 2024. Why even have a power button? Honestly, with the likes of Polestar and Tesla, where you get in, it recognizes your key or whatever cell phone, your card, or whatever you've got on you, it just powers up and you're ready to go. Far more convenient, and I think that would be the way Kia should go in the future, especially because this kind of positioning for a power button, not the best idea. Now with regards to the shifter, it's fair, it's fine, it works. You basically press the pedal, shift forward for drive, shift back for reverse, up a halfway for neutral, press the button on the end for P for park. Now one thing that I did notice that was kind of interesting is that it's got, I don't know if you guys are from the 80s and 90s, but there used to be force feedback steering wheels that would buzz when you did certain things. Not only does this steering wheel have force feedback where it buzzes when you get close to a line, but for some strange reason, when I put the car into reverse, it actually vibrates. I have no idea why, but there you go. You get a vibrating stalk when you put your car in reverse. That's just so weird. One of the things that I noticed when I got into the EV9 that I thought was an interesting change was the layout of the climate control buttons and the actual climate control display. Now in the EV6, you've got a climate control panel that's below here. It's actually a multifunction panel that goes from media to climate control, and they've changed that up here. So you've got buttons for temperature control and fan speed here. The passenger has their own temperature, and most of the information that you need is set right here on this display. Now, one of the problems that every other reviewer has mentioned is that it's hidden by the steering wheel, and if you drive like me with your hands in this position, you essentially can't see anything. So if you want to change the auto speed, the only way to do it is on this touchscreen. Fortunately, when you're driving, if you go like this, you can see it. For anything else, you need to rely on these buttons. If you want to change the temperature, it's down and up with this. And if you want to change the fan speed, you have to use this button here. And when you do change the fan speed, it takes it out of auto mode, so you have to go back and touch the auto mode button on the screen there. Another change that I found interesting, but also annoying, was these haptic feedback buttons that are built into the dash of the vehicle. Now you've got home, map, search, media, a favorite key where you can program something, and then setup. Now these buttons are very convenient, they're well placed, they're not hard to access, but if you're driving the car and it's a bumpy road, like I live in the province of Quebec, every road is bumpy, I tend to put my fingers on the dash so that I don't bounce around and hit the wrong thing in the touchscreen. So when I was driving the vehicle, I put my finger down on the map key, and instead of hitting Android Auto that I was trying to do something, I essentially changed over to another menu. So I was a little surprised because it also has haptic feedback that vibrates pretty robustly, and quite surprised me. So it's just something to get used to. If you're wondering why I've got you looking at me through the rearview mirror, it's because a couple days ago I was driving and discovered something by accident. Essentially, the rearview mirror is a multifunction mirror. It's got a rearview camera. This is something that I had no idea about because the EV9 is not a vehicle that I've dug into very much. I just thought that was pretty cool. You can actually adjust the brightness and the angle with these buttons here. So it can go up or down. That seems to be a digital adjustment as opposed to optical. So just another pretty neat feature that I thought you might be interested in. Both side view mirrors are auto dimming. That means that at night, if somebody's coming up behind you and they've got some big bright lights like these giant Ford F-150 pickups that are jacked up and have these super ultra bright white headlights, well, you won't get blinded. There's one annoying thing that I noticed with the Kia EV9, and when I walked towards the vehicle with the key in my pocket, got it in my hand for this demonstration, the car does something kind of weird. So the handles present themselves, the mirrors present themselves. That can be changed, by the way, in the menus of the vehicle. But what they do is after 30 seconds, they will retract. Let me speed this up so we get to that point. So now that they've timed out after 30 seconds and they've locked and retracted, when this key is in my pocket, because that's usually always where it is, the button doesn't work. I cannot unlock my handles because I'm still within the range of the sensors, and I don't know. On my EV6, if I walk up, they present, and if I wait long enough, they'll lock themselves and the handles will go away. I can tap on this and they will unlock. With the EV9, now I have to go digging in my pocket, pull out the key, and press the unlock button. Now I can get in. Kind of annoying and a little bit weird that they would program it differently. With this EV9 being the Land GT line trim, it comes with these huge 21-inch wheels. And when I first saw the vehicle, I thought these were the wheels themselves, but they're not. These are aero covers on top of mag wheels. And that brings up the point that I want to get to. Now, when I got the vehicle, I had the windows down, and every time I hit a pothole, I would hear a rattling sound, and it took me about 30 seconds to figure it out, but this thing rattles like a tin can every pothole I hit, and that's on more than one of these wheels that I hear it. Now, I'm not sure if that's because this is a press car and it's been done stuff too, I have no idea. But if this was my vehicle, these would be the first thing to go. Now, not only would I want to get rid of them for these covers that rattle, but 21-inch wheels are not super efficient. I would opt for 19-inch wheels that come on the entry trim. That would increase the efficiency of the vehicle, so increasing range. It would also give you a softer ride comfort. And let's face it, this isn't a sports car. I'm not looking for low-profile, handly, grippy tires. When I moved from my Kia Niro EV to my Kia EV6, I obviously got a new key fob. Now, this new key fob from Kia was a step up from the one that came with the Niro EV. It has a good weight to it, it feels good, it's well built, it's got buttons on one side for various features, and then it's got the auto parking buttons on this side here with a little light on it. Now, this works really well. You hold it in one hand, press the buttons, and then you can access the other ones by pressing this with your thumb. So that's one-handed operation. Then I got the key for the Kia EV9. And forget the fact that it's white, which is a terrible choice because hands, white, dirt, it's just gonna look terrible. But they've taken all the buttons off of the faces and they've put them all on the edge, on both sides. So what that means is you can grab it like this and press the lock button, and that works fine, and I like that. But then you have to flip it over, hold it like this, and then press the hold button, which is this key here, so that you can activate the parking feature or the summon feature. And when you do that, well, your fingers are on the other side, so guess what? You have the choice of unlock, pop the trunk, or make the car honk, because oops, I clipped those buttons. I don't understand why they would make this design, and I still haven't found a way to make it work conveniently with one hand, so I'm basically pressing it like this, pressing, and then pressing. It looks really stupid, and it's kind of awkward. So that's me being nitpicky, but I don't like the new key. What can you say? Well, I'm on the subject of weird design choices in the Kia EV9. Here's another one that I can't figure out, and if you can, please put it in the comment section below, because for the life of me, I can't find it. Now, I like convenience mode in my Kia EV6, and that means that I turn on the air conditioning on full blast, I can exit the vehicle, all the other doors are locked, I take out the regular manual key, and I lock the door handle, and I'm done. Now, the EV9 doesn't have a door lock. There's nothing, barring popping a little plastic cover that's under here, which I'm not gonna do in a parking lot. I didn't even look to see what's underneath that little cover. There's nothing. I cannot find where to lock this manually, so you cannot leave the vehicle with the air conditioning on and lock the doors. If you know how, let me know in the comment section below. Earlier I mentioned that the EV9 had a very comfortable ride, and that hasn't changed. One thing I didn't mention though is because of these 21-inch wheels, it's surprisingly very good in terms of handling. Now, this is a giant truck, don't get me wrong, it's not a sports car by any means, but the fact that I was able to take this vehicle at curves that were higher speeds than, let's say, posted, it's incredible how the EV9's low center of gravity, these large wheels, and pretty well-tuned suspension managed to grip those corners surprisingly well. So, don't get me wrong, this isn't a sports car, but for an SUV, I'm impressed. One of the big differences between the EV9 and the EV6 is the highway driver assist. Now, the highway driver assist is sort of the autopilot from Tesla in a Kia product. Now, highway driver assist doesn't allow you to take your hands off the steering wheel, but the car does drive itself. That includes
clicking your flasher and having the car change lanes by itself, as long as your hands are on the wheel. If your hands aren't on the wheel when you do that, the car will tell you. Now, with that being said, my EV6 has very smooth, very well-mannered highway driver assist, where it'll make maneuvers that are actually pretty good, and surprisingly, in conditions where I didn't think it would be able to do it, it manages curves at speeds that it shouldn't without your hands on the wheel, but if you're hovering over your wheel, it does it. I was kind of surprised. Now, the EV9 is also very precise and does a good job, but what I did notice with the EV9's highway driver assist is that it's, I guess, twitchy is the word, aggressive. There's one particular situation that I find rather annoying, and that's on the highway. So if I'm on the highway and I'm in the middle lane doing 110 kilometers an hour, and there's a slower vehicle in front of me, while there are vehicles passing me to my left, I put my flasher on. Once the vehicle has overtaken me on my left, I start to merge, but the EV9 seems to think it needs to slow down. So it sees that vehicle in the left lane, and as I'm starting to merge, for a fraction of a second, it hits the brakes. And it's quite jarring. It actually surprised my mother and my wife, and it did it more than once. I can repeat this any time of the day with this vehicle. Now, I don't know if it's only this vehicle, but hopefully, if it isn't only for this one, that Kia will fix the problem with a software update, because it's pretty annoying. And it made it to the point where I would wait for cars to overtake me, get a good distance, then put the flasher to change lanes, because I didn't want to scare the hell out of my wife. Now, other than that, the steering wheel has lane keep assist and lane follow assist. Now, lane follow assist is where the wheel will follow the lines even in curves. Lane keep assist bounces you off the lines if you get too close to them. Now, the lane follow assist is also twitchy and aggressive compared to my car. In Quebec, we tend to ride the left line. So in other words, if I'm in the left lane, I'll be more in the left line. My EV6 and the EV9 don't like to be that close to the left line. They prefer being more to the right side. And in my car, I'm able to force the steering slightly if I don't turn off LFA or lane follow assist, and it just lives with it. The EV9, it doesn't like that, I guess I can say politely. And the wheel will regularly kind of twitch me back to the center or try and get me back, and I'll have to fight with it. It got to the point where I would just turn off lane follow assist and drive on the left line to stay away from the people in the middle who are also driving on the left line. So just a little nitpicky thing, and again, I'm sure that's something that could be corrected with a software update if Kia deems that a necessity. One thing I really like about the inside of the EV9, other than the seats that are pretty amazing, is the shape of the steering wheel. Now, they've redesigned the steering wheel in a way that makes it easier to see the screen in front of you. In the EV6, with the round wheel at the top portion, when I'm sitting in my seat and I look down at the console, essentially the whole top of the console and the top right corners are cut off because I like to keep my steering low. That's pretty inconvenient. And in the EV9, they seem to have mitigated that somewhat by having the steering wheel in the shape of a squircle, I guess you call it, the square circle. It's flattened in certain areas, and it's quite nice. And I like it for the visibility, and I like it for the drive comfort. So well done, Kia. Good choice on the steering wheel. I wish my EV6 had one like this. Something that I really like about the Kia EV9 versus my Kia EV6 is the new infotainment system. And just for one thing, but also for a whole bunch of other things, the new EV9 infotainment system is very familiar, and anybody with an EV6 will look at this and go, I know all that stuff, but the design is slightly different, and it's got wireless Android Auto and CarPlay. My EV6, although it was the top of the line Kia at the time, does not, and it's very disappointing. Now, not only does it have wireless Android Auto, but they've managed to do something that's been bugging me since I got my EV6, and that's the fact that the heads-up display in the EV6 doesn't display any information with regards to directions when you're using Google Maps in Android Auto. The EV9, I paired it with Bluetooth, and my cell phone linked, Android Auto popped up, everything was there. I set my destination, and then I noticed right in the heads-up display, directions and arrows telling me where to go. you don't even need to look at the touchscreen. That's an amazing feature that I wish my car had, because I use Google Maps all the time because of construction and all the crap happening around Montreal. So nicely done, Kia EV9 Android Auto integration into the heads-up display, and seamlessly with wireless. It works very well. One thing to note though is my cell phone was on the wireless charger using wireless Android Auto for the entire trip to Quebec City, and the phone got really hot, and I mean really hot. Seems like the ventilation on the charging pad isn't quite sufficient, so something to think about. You can always connect your phone with a USB to USB cable into one of the USB ports that are underneath here, and you'll be fine. So something to note. Like I mentioned, the infotainment system and the maps and everything are all very familiar to anybody who owns an EV6 or a Hyundai Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 6, etc., because it's pretty much the same platform. However, there are improvements. Now, the menu design and layout is much more, I guess, modernized, and the new EV screen is also a lot easier to navigate. You don't have these sub-menus that you have to dig into, and if you have the split screen set, they don't hide. It's actually quite nicely designed. I could make a video dedicated only to the infotainment system, and it would be very interesting, but that would make this video way too long, so that's not going to happen because I don't have the time. I have to give the car back tomorrow. So with that being said, the infotainment, the wireless Android Auto, the integration into the heads-up display, the seats, the ride comfort, everything, this vehicle hits all the marks for me. And the only reason I wouldn't want to buy one of these is because it's a giant SUV and I drive alone 95% of the time. There's absolutely no reason for me to have a 100 kilowatt hour battery in a giant 6-passenger vehicle when I don't need it. So I'm sticking with my EV6 for now. But if I was younger, if my kids weren't adults and moved out of the house, this is definitely the vehicle I would be looking into if I was considering it for a family as opposed to a minivan. This thing really is an incredible vehicle and incredibly luxurious. So for the price, you really can't go wrong with the EV9.
Hey buddy, psst, come here. Want to buy a t-shirt? I've got them in a bunch of colors. I've got blue, check it out. I've got some gray, might be of interest to you, check it out. If you don't like those, it's okay. I've also got black, classic black. And if you don't want that, it's 35 degrees, but hey, maybe you want to buy a hoodie. In all seriousness, I've got merchandise for sale on my website. I'll have some social media links on the screen for you to see, as well as in the description below. If you do buy something to support my channel, thank you very much. It's been about a year. I haven't posted a video. I know it's been a long time, but I've been super busy with my business and it's prevented me from spending time on my YouTube channel. But I still do answer all of the questions. If you do have any questions about the EV9 or the EV6 of an EV that you'd like me to review, then please put that in the comment section below as well. If there's anything that you've seen in this video that you might have a comment about, or something that you see that I didn't see, then also please feel free to put that in the comment section. I try and make it a point to answer every single comment that's in there, and if I don't and it takes a couple days, please be a little bit patient with me. Things are really busy right now. So if you really like this video, please click on that thumbs up button. It tells the YouTube algorithm that it's a video worth sharing. And if you really like this video, then please consider clicking on that subscribe button, because it tells me that you like the content that I make, and it makes me want to make more videos. And even though I don't post videos very regularly, especially lately, I will continue to do this because it's something I love to do. So once again, thank you for taking the time to watch my video. I do appreciate it. And this is the Kia EV9 that Now, this is obvious with the amount of legroom that I've got sitting back here in front of me, and in front of me, I'm a robot. When I originally saw it, and I saw it in reviews, I thought, it's kind of silly to have this drawer. That's a drawer and a tray in one? We'll call it a drawer. It's a new word, maybe like the front. Now, this little drawer, a tray drawer. Maybe that'll catch on and all the reviewers are gonna start calling it a drawer because frunk. But I wanted to know what my mother and what my wife thought. Now, in her first statement, she essentially, why did I just look at the door sill while I was talking? Let's Nobody's down there looking at me. Now these bolsters that are right here and with this button here will suck up to your body. Suck up to your body. Yeah, it'll suck up to you. It'll want a pay raise. Oy. With that out of the way, what else do I find interesting about the driver's seats? Well, there are a couple things. The driver's seats, yeah, because there's two. So they've got you covered with the buttons, and I have to redo that segment because I just realized something that I was gonna say, and you know, I totally forgot I was gonna say it, so there you go. I'm not sure if you can hear the sound of the air conditioning. I've got it on full blast. Please beer with me. Please beer with me. I'd love a beer right now. Very different than the Kia EV6 is Kia EV6. There's one annoying thing. Something that surprised me when I first saw the vehicle though, is that these covers are actually covers and not the wheel itself. These covers are covers. Dumbass. And I want to leave to go do something in sort of a store. Do something in sort of a store. And even though it's 35 degrees, maybe you want to buy a hoodie. Nice hoodie for your wife. You never know. Hey, really cheap. Check them out on my website. Psst, hey buddy, want to buy a t-shirt? I can't be serious when I do this.